I'm going to kick everything off today first by introducing myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Chris Levendis, and I work for the MITRE Corporation. I'm the MITRE program lead for the CVE program. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody around the world. It's great to have everybody participating in the workshop today. And I have just a quick 15-minute slot, so I'm going to really go quickly through a few slides here. I want to say that if there are any questions, given that I only have a 15-minute slot, happy to touch base with anybody both during and after the workshop through chat or via phone call or email, however you'd like, if you have any questions for the material that I'm presenting or really anything else. So with that said, again, welcome. Our workshop today is oriented towards keeping all of you all abreast of key events and details as those things relate to the current state of the CVE program, the CVE services that are deployed, and the authorized data publishers that are in pilot right now and will be deployed in Q1 calendar year 2024. We'd like to talk about different experiences with the new JSON 5.0 data format and guidance related to that. We'll talk about some highlights as those relate to the CVE program rules as those are being revised, which has been really a monumental task, and we're making some good progress, and so there'll be a whole section on that. And then corpus hygiene, and things we can do to keep the CVE body of knowledge or corpus of information as good and as high quality as we can. And those things will cover things like link rot and balk record updates through ARSIS and other things. And so we have a section on that. Again, just reiterating, as Dave indicated, questions and comments are certainly welcome. And you can either use the raise your hand feature in Teams or post a question in the Teams chat window, and we'll do our best to get you the answer as quickly as possible. I always like to start off in terms of the state of the CVE program by just reiterating what the mission goals and outcomes are that the program's trying to achieve. There are all kinds of things out in the ecosystem about what CVE is or what it should be or what it isn't. And I like to start with what it actually is, what our mission is, goals and outcomes we're trying to achieve. So the CVE program mission is straightforward, and that is to identify, define, and catalog publicly disclosed cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And that necessitates two primary goals for the program, and that's increased CVE program adoption. And so that simply means making sure that CVE is used all throughout the vulnerability management ecosystem to the degree that we can achieve that. And then we want to increase CVE program coverage. And so that means simply that more vulnerabilities get CVE IDs and associated CVE records. And of course, we do these things. We have this mission and we have these goals so that we can produce more quality CVE records faster. And note the word quality. So we want to produce CVE records and cover all manner of vulnerabilities, but we want those records to be as high quality as possible. And that is very difficult to achieve. And that's something that the program really relies on CVE numbering authorities or CNAs to help achieve. It's a challenge that we've had historically, we'll have it today, and we'll have it going forward. But it's a challenge that we're continually trying to get better at. So just a quick walk down memory lane. MITRE used to be the center of the CVE program universe, and that doesn't scale. And everybody kind of figured that out in the 2016, 2017 timeframe. And so the CVE board decided to pursue a strategy of federated governance and operations. And what that really means is, we needed to scale the delivery of CVE's value proposition to many more things, and so we came up with a strategy of instead of centralized governance and operations through a single entity MITRE, we came up with a strategy for federated governance and operations that's essentially based on partnerships throughout the world, and those partnerships include roots, CNAs, governance mechanisms like the board. It includes working groups. So more to come on those, but it starts with more partners, and those partners are CNAs and roots, right? And as we all know, CNAs are the only organizations allowed to assign CVE IDs and publish CVE records. So the more CNAs we have, the more the program can expand coverage and scale. There's this concept for authorized data publishers, and these are organizations authorized by the CVE program to enrich CVE records with value-added data. We have a couple of those in pilot right now, and they will go into production in Q1 2024, we think. And I'll talk in a little more detail about those a little bit further into the presentation. Of course, we have our working groups, and that's where we get all of the work done, or most of the work done, aside from phone calls to one another, kind of offline. But we do a lot of the work in the program working groups. We need automated services to automate data exchange within the program. We're rolling those things out right now, and we've got initial operating capability across a variety of the services right now today. And then we have the new JSON 5 CVE program data format. I think most of us think a big step above the JSON 4 data format that we've been using for the last few years. There'll be a big discussion on JSON 5 later on in the workshop. And so those are the big things that the program is doing right now to implement this federated governance and operational strategy. And this is just a quick snapshot of what our program looks like today. Right, so we have the CVE board up in the top center of the graphic, and they're really responsible for charting the strategic direction of the program. And the CVE board is comprised of industry, government, and academic stakeholders from around the world. And it's a really important governance component to the CVE program. And then all CVE working groups report into the board. They do work at the board's discretion, and the board can create or disband a working group at its discretion. There are these secretariat functions that are required for just executing program governance and operations, and those functions right now are currently executed by MITRE. We have two top-level routes, and top-level routes are, you can think of those as governance and administrative entities that report directly to the board as opposed to another route. And then, of course, we have our routes. The routes have their own governance and administrative responsibilities for their own scope of responsibilities, and all routes report into a top-level route. And then, of course, we have CNAs, and CNAs report into either a top-level route or a route. We can see of note on this graphic is we see CISA as a top-level route. It used to be that MITRE was the only top-level route within the program, and now we have CISA as a peer organization that has all of the same responsibilities in terms of being a top-level route that the MITRE top-level route has. And so this is a recent development over the last few years. So let me move to the next slide just to give everybody a snapshot of the program. Let's look at metrics. All right, I'm a big believer in understanding how things are changing as a result of the implementation of the federated governance and operational strategy. And so right now, and this number is actually out of date as of yesterday, we have 330 partners in 37 countries. I believe that number is now up to 333 partners in 37 countries. And the global map on the right-hand side just gives you kind of an eye candy picture of that. But if we look at the table, the mission of the CVE program is essentially to produce CVE records to enable vulnerability management. And if you look at kind of 2016 transitioning into 2017, that's when federation in the program really begins, right? We start out with 24 CNAs and only one international CNA, and at the time that was JP CERT. To now, if we look in 2023, we have 330 CNAs. And that's in 37 countries. And if we look at the records published, as we add CNAs, essentially starting from the beginning of kind of 2016, 2017, we produce more and more CVE records. Right, year over year, record production increases because we're achieving our coverage goal through these international partnerships that we have with CNAs. And we can see the total production, right? So CNAs volunteer their own time for their own benefit. And in 2016, MITRE produced 100% of the CVE records coming out of the CVE program. If we look today in 2023, volunteer CNAs produce 77% of all CVE records, and both CNAs of last resort, both MITRE and CISA ICS, they produce only 23% of all CVE records. So the strategy is working in terms of achieving our goals, our adoption and coverage goals. And we look at other metrics. So, for example, we've deployed the ID request service, the record submission and upload service, the JSON 5.0 data format, the CVE.org website. We've reduced CNA onboarding time, at least in the MITRE top level route, from multiple days now to just a couple of hours. And we have program rules, policies, and guidance established, and those things are being evolved right now. So from a metrics perspective, we're doing well. Of course, we should always strive to do better. And I think that's the singular focus of the board, is how can we make all of this even better than it is now? And so for the services, I'm sort of running out of time a little bit in my slot here, but we've got ID reservation, which enables automated reservation of CVE IDs without having to go through the secretariat or a human in the loop. That was deployed in December 2020. We have the record submission and upload service, and this allows CNAs to submit CVE records or update them, again, without the need for manual secretariat review. And that was deployed in October 2022. And we have the CVE user registry, and this is a critical service that only exists in the most rudimentary form now, but we're in the middle of a requirements gathering process to basically build out a more robust user registry. And this just enables management of the CVE program, whether it's permissions, policy values, managing user accounts, and changing points of contact. The user registry is a really important component for self-help and automated management. If we go to the CVE program JSON 5 data format, again, that is out the door, deployed in March of 2023, and that's JSON 5 for both record submission as well as the bulk download capability. And a lot of lessons learned from JSON 5, from the JSON 5 deployment and subsequent initial usage, is going to be talked about in today's workshop. And then there's an upcoming JSON 5.1 minor release, and a big highlight of that is it will support CVSS 4.0, and we expect that to be deployed at some point in Q1 2024. Authorized data publishers, just very quickly on these. These are organizations that are authorized by the CVE program to provide, again, value-added information for CVE records. We have 2 pilots underway. The Secretariat, throughout the history of the CVE program, has always added references or URLs to CVE records. And that's going to continue, but instead of adding those references directly to a CNA container, we're now going to start adding them through our Secretariat ADP container. That pilot is underway in the ADP demonstration environment, and everything is going according to design and plan. CISA is conducting a pilot related to stakeholder-specific vulnerability categorization, otherwise known as SSVC, and that's a system for prioritizing actions during vulnerability coordination and management. And then the KEV, the known exploited vulnerabilities list, that is produced by CISA. And known exploited vulnerabilities are just that. They're vulnerabilities that there is clear evidence of exploitation in the wild. Those 2 pilots are underway right now, and they are working as designed. And so we expect those to become operational again in the production environment in the first quarter of 2024. If anybody out there believes they have value-added information they can provide to CVE records, you're welcome to apply to become an ADP through the Strategic Planning Working Group. There's an application you'll have to complete. But there is a way to become an ADP if you can demonstrate value to the program. This is just a list of our working groups. I think a lot of people out there understand what the working groups are, but here's a list of them. These slides will be available to folks after the meeting. And my time slot has expired.